Hey there, Squirrel Army! Today I want to discuss Nahiri's Resolve, a new Blink buff. You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing. Alrighty, so this is a new enchantment that comes from the March of Machines Aftermath set. 5 mana, your creatures get +1/+0 and have haste. That's pretty nice, you know. Usually you'd find that on like a 3 mana enchantment or maybe a 5 mana god or whatever, you know, indestructible and it does some other stuff or whatever. So, you know, well, I don't think you get the +1/+0, but yeah, the haste you'd usually get on a 3 mana enchantment. The +1/+0, you'd probably get that on a 3 mana enchantment. I think there's one that's actually +1/+0 and Menace or something like that. That's about 3 mana, so that seems on par so far. At the beginning of your end step, you exile any number of non-token artifacts and or creatures you control. Now that's interesting. I didn't read that it was artifacts initially, but that's a lot better than just creatures. Because you might have some artifacts that you want to untap, especially if you're in Boros or Mardu or colors like that, Jeskai, that need their mana rocks and things like that. And you want to kind of play at instant speed, kind of gives you almost double mana in a way. So that's probably worth a 5 mana, 6 mana enchantment there. And then you return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the end step, or the beginning of your next upkeep. Oh, okay. I thought it was the end step. So it's a little bit worse than what I thought that it was, being that you have to return them to your upkeep. I thought it was the end step. So ignore what I said about you being able to untap your stuff, but it's still alright, I think. It's one of those things that I thought that this was a lot better than what it probably was because I thought, oh, it was at the end step like everything else is. But it's still at the upkeep. That's still alright. And your stuff still has haste. So again, you know, you don't have to worry that much about, you know, your stuff coming back in at the upkeep and being like, oh, well, I just flickered my stuff and now I can't do anything with my stuff. Well, this lets you do stuff with your things because you have haste. So, you know, there's that. So maybe that's a thing, I don't know, that they thought of being like, well, we don't really want it to be too good or something. But still, I think it's very good for certain builds because a lot of builds that are out there in Boros and Mardu and whatnot tend to need blinking effects and this sort of effects because you've got a fair few really good ETBs. I actually think that if this was at the end step, it'd be so much more powerful because, again, you'd have that ability to play at instant speed and you'd have all your creatures untapped to block and whatnot and that sort of thing. So having not have your creatures there except for your tokens or whatever does mean that they won't get killed during board wipes and stuff like that, so that could be a little bit of interesting tech in a way, but you might just get hit by everyone if you don't have a lot of tokens. So I think you really do want to play this with a token strategy, especially if those tokens come in after your combat or whatever, or during your combat, and they don't get to attack or whatever, so you've got those bodies left behind so that you can, you know, defend yourself and whatnot. So, yeah, that would be a pretty good thing. But I still think that there's a lot of, you know, Jeskai, Mardu, whatever else other colours you can think of, Boros, etc., that would want an enchantment like this for several of the things there, just being able to, you know, effectively get double ETBs in a sense, especially if you're running the new Elish Norn, or not the newest Elish Norn, actually, because there's another new Elish Norn, isn't there? But yeah, like, it's one of those things where it can be very powerful in the right deck. I don't know whether there's any kind of Jeskai Blink deck I don't think that there is. There might be one at some point. Maybe someone will brew it up or whatever. Maybe have some just random ETB commander that, you know, you can get some good stuff off of and just run all the other good blink stuff that's in these colours. You've got Conjurer's Closet, which just blinks stuff, much like this does, which again is about 5 mana. You've got the a bunch of the other cards there. The enchantment that blinks things, Teleportation Circle. You've got Thassa, and you've got a few others. So there's certainly probably enough there. You've got Yorion, and you've got, Brago and all of that. So that sounds like it could actually be a real kind of deck in some way. I don't know what the commander would be, like I said, but it sounds like it could be a real thing because a lot of the good blink stuff is in blue and white. So, just adding this to the red color pie in a sense as well, meaning that you could go into Jeskai or Mardu or whatever. Again, giving you that flexibility and getting extra ETBs and that sort of stuff and just untapping your mana rocks or whatever. I don't know. It's tough to say because, again, if you're not playing a bunch of tokens or something after your combat, no, it's at your end step you have to flicker. Oh, okay. So unless you're playing at instant speed a lot, which is hard to do with something like this because you want to flicker as many things as you can to try to get value. But then I don't know whether you want to flicker your mana ups because you untap them at your upkeep anyway, so I don't know whether that's actually that useful. But certainly some things that have ETB triggers like Solemn Simulacrum and things like that might be alright. But things that actually have a when it leaves trigger rather than when it dies or whatever would be a lot better because, again, if you get the ETB, then the LTB, you're getting both of them in the same turn, and then you're probably getting it again next turn. So again, especially when you're starting to double the triggers. So yeah, there's still space for this, even though I've read it slightly wrong and assumed what it actually said, somewhat. But hey, it is what it is. A lot of these enchantments and whatnot do that thing, so you assume that it would do that thing. So, but anyway, it's better because I didn't realize that it was artifacts that you could flicker as well, essentially. So it's still pretty darn good. It's obviously not the most broken and powerful card in this set, but still I think it's a very good card that people should think about putting into some of your decks, especially if you've got lots of ETBs and whatnot that you need to gain more value off of, because again, once you've gained that value once, you're kind of like, well, this card's not really doing anything now, so I really need to get more off of it than just that one thing. So putting this into those sorts of decks where you can get multiple values off of them will be well worth it. But anyway, guys, you can always tell me what you guys think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. And hope you've enjoyed this one. Hope you'll join me again in the next one.